Hi, it's Chris. A few things I want to do in this video. First of all, I want to talk about Friday and what some of you can do in substitution of one of the modules. You can substitute this for Module 2, 3, 4, or 5. Then I want to give you some feedback on your unit exam that you turned in. Just very brief feedback and some very brief feedback on what I've evaluated so far with Module 1. And then finally, I would like to be more explicit on what I expect you to do with Module 2. So on Friday, July 18th, Jack Monpes-Huber from the Shoreline School District, he's actually the Shoreline Director of Assessment and Student Information, will be on campus, and he's talking to a doctoral class. I think there's only 2 people in the class though. So we're opening this up to graduate students. He will be talking on Common Core standards and smarter balanced assessment. So if you choose to attend this lecture, and it's from 9 to 1 in Cremona Hall, and if you take detailed notes, you can substitute this as a module for 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now, Cremona Hall is it's right across from Tiffany Loop. So if you go in the parking lot that is by Sandella's restaurant, it's the 2nd floor building. It's a newer building, and he will be presenting in Cremona 102. So that's an option for some of you who can make it to campus on Friday. Then I wanted to give you some feedback on your unit exams, and particularly with the learning targets. The learning targets were beautiful. You're teaching a lot of great information. These units are very purposeful, and they have great intentions behind them as far as learning targets go. It just struck me how many of them are so necessary to produce students who are college and career ready, or able to function as adults. And it just, I think that language needs to be communicated to students as you're phrasing your learning targets and you're talking about rationales for why you're doing what you're doing, why these skills are so necessary for democracy. Because democracy, as you know, is just so difficult. It's so difficult to be middle class. You have to have intention behind so much of what you do to make it to that middle class level. And I think if students know rationales behind what you're doing in your classrooms, they may be more cooperative in the learning. So that's just one point I wanted to make. Use logical language as you're communicating your learning targets. And the second thing I wanted to say about Module 1 is that in the products category, there wasn't much information about learning targets. And it's just so interesting because the motivation research is that students are most interested in learning when they're producing products and they're socializing with peers. So when you're designing your unit, your daily unit activities really focus on products and skills, especially skills that produce college and career ready adults. Because I think typical unit exams can't measure those kinds of things that are so necessary for engaging in school. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about what I want you to do in Module 2, because it's different for elementary teachers than it is for secondary teachers. So if you go to discussions and you go to Module 2, you'll see more exact language. It's due July 21st at 12 o'clock midnight, and it's 15% of your grades, so do put significant work into this activity. This week you won't be reading from the textbooks. You'll be looking at Common Core writing standards on the internet. So I would like you to, first of all, if you're an elementary teacher, tell me what you know about Common Core standards. And you can create a bullet list of just discrete information, sentences or fragments that demonstrate what you know about Common Core standards. So start with your prior knowledge. Then I would like you to view about 30 to 45 minutes of Common Core video, particularly of teachers talking about good ideas about how to implement the Common Core in writing classes. It should be approximately grade level kinds of videos that you're looking at, and I want you to take notes of these videos so you can summarize what each video, the content of each video, what the teacher did, and the strategies behind that video. Then thirdly, I want you to focus on Common Core writing standards for grades kindergarten through 5th grade. If you're a preschool teacher, you can focus on kindergarten. So according to Common Core state standards, every teacher is now a writing teacher. So view those writing standards at that website. That's part 3 of this module. And then the fourth thing I want you to do is for 2 grades, I want you to use specific grade standards to create a rubric to evaluate 2 writing samples of students that are part of this module. Your rubric does not have to be a matrix with columns. It can be a bullet point list if that works better for you. But it does have to use exact language from the Common Core writing standards. And you particularly want to focus on the strengths of student writing. So pick rubric wording that matches what the student has actually demonstrated in the writing. And then finally, point 5, use exact wording from student writing that proves that the student has met that grade standard or might prove that they have not. But be careful if they have not met the state writing standard. Be careful that you're very soft with the student in terms of telling them what they should do instead, because writing represents identity and we don't want to lambast students, obviously. And so there's a rubric for that, and I will evaluate Module 2 according to that rubric. Now for secondary teachers, and I will end with an explanation. So if you're an elementary teacher, you can stop watching now. But for secondary teachers, I have an article that I'd like you to read. I'm looking at it right now. Okay, sorry for that pause. I wrote this article, I think it was in 2012. It's from the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy, and it's based on my husband, actually, who's a history teacher, who has very high success rates as an AP U.S. history teacher. And as you might know, if you're a history teacher, a big portion of the AP exam is student writing. So you can actually read this article. It's under Content on Blackboard. Then the second thing that I'd like you to do after you've read this article is to state in your own words what academic language looks like in your discipline and why academic language is important in your discipline. And then I would like you to provide examples of what it might look like in student writing in your discipline and what it might not look like in student writing. And this kind of harkens back to the article that you've read, where I have some vignettes on Taylor's writing when it's not so good, and then finally at the end of the year when it's actually very good historical writing. Then the third thing I want you to do is give me an example of how classroom discourse, and by classroom discourse I mean talk in your classroom, can provide students with organizational language frames to express knowledge, and how those language frames might enhance writing instruction. The teacher in the article, Mr. Malcolm, does a great deal of showing students how to write as they're having conversations about history. And it's really good modeling for writing, actually. So I want you to think about that in part 3. And then finally, part 4. In your own words, define the scaffolding moves that Mr. Malcolm uses, and they make up the major headings in this article. Then transfer Welkwise scaffolding moves to your own discipline to improve student critical thinking and writing in your discipline, and provide an example for how you could enhance student knowledge and writing through 2 of the following scaffolding moves. Building top-down schemata for students, building bottom-up schemata for students, fostering metacognition of your discipline, and modeling how to make assertions in your discipline, bridging knowledge, and contextualizing knowledge or representing text. So that's all written down as part of Module 2. There's also a rubric that will tell you how to grade. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.